My boyfriend brought his mistress home, and then he just kicked me out without feeling guilty or saying sorry. Just you wait, I'm gonna get him back for all this bad treatment. Just you see? To get revenge on my ex, I'm gonna seduce his dad.
Me too. I've been looking forward to this evening.
In that luxurious apartment, Scarlett felt hollow, a strange unease settling deep within her. Her boyfriend Alex had been acting suspiciously lately. The scent of perfume wasn't hers. That was the first thing that alerted Scarlett that something was wrong. A sweet, unfamiliar aroma, jasmine and vanilla, lingered, faintly on Alex's side of the pillowcase, almost imperceptible yet piercing Scarlett's senses like a needle. At first she tried to dismiss it. Maybe from a colleague, she thought. Maybe from Alex's mother. Maybe she was just imagining things. But small anomalies kept surfacing, like cracks slowly spreading across a pane of glass. There was a credit card bill for an expensive Italian dinner they had never attended together. There were late-night phone calls Alex answered in hushed whispers on the balcony. And there was a new look in Alex's eyes, a vacant gaze that seemed to pierce right through Scarlett, as if she were just another piece of furniture in their lavish apartment. That evening, Scarlett decided to try one last time. She held the proof in her hand, a receipt from a jewelry store for a diamond necklace she had never received. Her heart pounded as she waited for Alex to come home.
Alex, we need to talk,
she said, trying to keep her voice steady as Alex walked in, shrugging off his expensive suit jacket. Alex sighed, a gesture of exhaustion and irritation.
What is it now, Scarlett? I'm tired.
This,
Scarlett said, placing the receipt on the marble table.
a diamond necklace. I just want to know who it's for.
Alex glanced at the receipt, then looked at Scarlett with an expression that made Scarlett's stomach churn. It wasn't guilt, but annoyance.
God, Scarlett. It's a gift for a client, to build business relations. Why does everything have to be a problem with you? Why can't you just trust me for once?
But this is a jewelry store, Alex, not my...
Enough!
He snapped, his voice suddenly rising.
I'm sick of your baseless suspicions! Maybe the problem isn't me. Maybe the problem is your own insecurities.
The words hit Scarlett like a slap. She fell silent, staring at the handsome face of the man she loved, the man who now made her feel insane. Doubt crept into her mind. Maybe Alex was right. Maybe it was all in her head. Defeated, she let Alex pull her into a hug that felt empty and cold. A few days later, Scarlett planned a surprise. She cooked Alex's favorite dish, set the table with candles, and wore the dress Alex once said he adored. This was her last effort to save their relationship, to bring back the warmth that had been lost. She waited, the clock ticked on, and the food on the table grew cold. At 10 o'clock, the sound of keys jingled at the door. Scarlett's heart fluttered with hope, but Alex didn't come in alone. Beside him stood a woman, a tall woman with shimmering blonde hair and a tight red dress that hugged her figure. The woman smiled haughtily, and Scarlett could smell her perfume from across the room. Jasmine and vanilla. Scarlett's world seemed to stop spinning.
Alex?
Scarlett whispered, her voice barely audible. Alex looked at Scarlett emotionlessly, as if she were merely an inconvenient stranger.
Who is she, Al?
The woman beside him asked in a pampered voice, her eyes raking over Scarlett with a dismissive gaze.
No one.
Alex replied, his eyes still fixed on Scarlett.
Then?
He uttered the words that shattered the last remnants of Scarlett's heart into dust.
You'd better pack your bags, Scarlett. It's over.
There was no explanation, no apology, just a cold command delivered in front of the woman who had replaced her. Scarlett's shock turned into a freezing desolation. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She simply stood rigid as Alex and the woman walked past her, heading into the bedroom that had once belonged to them both. Half an hour later, Scarlett stood in the cold apartment hallway, with only a box containing her most essential personal belongings. The door behind her closed tightly, muffling the sound of laughter from inside. She stared at the solid wooden door, feeling a pain so immense it stole her breath. The pain then transformed into burning shame, then into a chilling emptiness. But at the bottom of that emptiness, something else began to ignite. Something dark, hard and sharp. No longer were tears wetting her cheeks, but the coldness of a decision. Alex had taken everything from her. Now she would do the same to him. She would destroy him by taking the one thing that mattered most to him, his sole source of power and arrogance. Not his money, not his women, but his father. That night, Scarlett didn't sleep in a luxurious hotel or on a friend's soft sofa. She ended up in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, with dull painted walls and the constant flicker of neon lights from outside, piercing through the thin curtains. The luxury that had lulled her to sleep had been snatched away in an instant, leaving behind a cold, piercing reality. She no longer cried. Her tears had dried, replaced by a strange, strangely calming emptiness. She lay on the rough sheets, staring at the cracked ceiling, and for the first time in a long time, her mind felt clear. She replayed all her memories with Alex, not with pain, but with the precision of an analyst dissecting a problem. What did Alex truly love? Not her, that was clear. Alex loved his sports cars, his luxury watches, his apartment, his parties. He loved his lifestyle. And where did all of that come from? The answer was singular: Arthur. Scarlett began to recall small details she had previously overlooked. The way Alex would tense up whenever a call from his father rang. The way he would boast about his father's perks one moment, then complain about the pressure from his father the next. Their relationship wasn't a warm father-son bond, but a transactional one between a king and a pampered prince constantly trying to prove his worth. Arthur was his bank, his judge, and the only person in the world whose opinion truly mattered to Alex. And in the stifling silence of the motel room, an idea sparked in Scarlett's mind. It was so brilliant, so cruel, and so perfectly conceived that it made her gasp sharply. An idea that sparkled like a diamond. Destroying Alex directly wouldn't be satisfying. Alex could always find another woman, another party. Taking his money? Impossible. But taking the source of his money? Turning the very person Alex most respected and feared into a weapon to destroy him? That would be a masterpiece. Scarlett's exhaustion vanished instantly, replaced by a burning energy. She grabbed her phone, the screen's light illuminating a completely new expression on her face, focused and calculating. She was no longer looking for job openings or places to live. She was looking for one name: Arthur Middleton. The search results showed business articles, interviews, and company profiles. But Scarlett was looking for something else. She was looking for a loophole, an entry point. After almost an hour of digging, she found it. An annual charity event, the Starlight Charity Gala, scheduled in 2 weeks. A major event where the city's elite would gather, including Arthur, whose name was listed as one of the main donors. It was the perfect stage, a place where powerful men let their guard down, smiling behind champagne flutes and masks of cordiality. Scarlett stared at the digital poster for the charity event. A thin, cold smile played on her lips. She had found the gateway to her battlefield. The hunt was about to begin. 2 weeks felt like 2 years and 2 seconds all at once. Scarlett used that time to transform. She sold the only precious jewelry she still possessed, a gift from her grandmother, to buy a dress. Not a flashy one, but an elegant, simple dark emerald silk gown that whispered luxury rather than shouting it. That night, as she stepped into the magnificent ballroom of the 5-star hotel, Scarlett felt as if she was entering a lion's den. The room sparkled with crystal lights, the clinking of champagne glasses, and the polite laughter of the city's power brokers. She felt small and invisible, yet that feeling strangely empowered her. She was a hunter slipping silently among her prey. She took a glass of champagne from a passing tray, not to drink but as a prop to blend in. Her eyes sharply scanned the crowd, moving past faces she recognized from business magazines, searching for a single target. And there he was. Arthur Middleton stood near the bar, slightly apart from the crowd. He wasn't laughing or making small talk. He was staring into his drink with a weary expression, as if all the luxury around him was a burden. He looked lonely amidst hundreds of people. That was the opening Scarlett was looking for. With a pounding heart but steady steps, Scarlett began to move. She didn't approach him directly. She walked in a wide circle, allowing Arthur to catch a glimpse of her from a distance. She let her dress catch the light as she chuckled softly at an old man's joke who greeted her. She was imprinting her image in Arthur's mind before speaking a single word. After waiting for the right moment, when Arthur was momentarily alone, Scarlett approached.
Boring party, isn't it?
Scarlett said, her voice calm and slightly amused. She stood beside Arthur, looking at the crowd with a similar weary expression. Arthur turned, slightly surprised. He looked Scarlett up and down, his gaze sharp and appraising.
Depends on what you're looking for.
He replied, his voice husky and deep.
I'm looking for something real.
Scarlett countered, now meeting Arthur's eyes directly.
Something that can't be bought with charity donations. Loyalty.
Arthur paused for a moment, his eyebrows slightly raised. He was clearly unaccustomed to such conversations at events like this. There was a flicker of curiosity in his tired eyes.
Are you Alex's girlfriend, my son?
I was, yes.
Scarlett said with a faint smile.
We broke up 2 weeks ago.
Another woman complaining.
Arthur grumbled with a sigh, as if such incidents were common.
Alex likes to play around. How much do you want?
For what?
Money. You're here to ask for compensation for Alex's actions, aren't you? To keep silent and not leak any information to the public, for the sake of the Middleton name. The women Alex sleeps with often complain to me.
I don't need money. I'm here for you. I didn't realize Alex had a father more handsome than him.
Scarlett took a sip of her champagne. They fell silent for a moment, letting in strange tension hang between them. Arthur, who was usually surrounded by people who wanted something from him, was now faced with a mysterious woman who seemed to want nothing at all.
I'm Arthur,
he said finally, extending a hand.
I know.
Scarlett replied, shaking his hand gently but firmly.
Everyone knows who you are.
She didn't give her name. She allowed herself to remain a mystery.
What's your name?
I have to go where...
Scarlett said abruptly, releasing his hand.
Enjoy your evening, Mr. Middleton.
Before Arthur could reply, Scarlett turned and walked away, melting back into the crowd. The bait had been cast. She knew Arthur would look for her. A man like Arthur couldn't resist an unsolved riddle. And sure enough, less than 10 minutes later, as Scarlett was about to leave the party, a hand gently touched her arm.
You haven't told me your name,
Arthur said, now standing before her, blocking her path. His previously tired eyes now gleamed with undisguised interest.
And I don't think this night has to end here.
Scarlett looked at him, a barely perceptible victorious smile playing on her lips. The hunt was over. The game was just beginning. Arthur's penthouse felt like the top of the world. Giant glass walls offered a sprawling view of the city, laid out like a carpet of jewels, yet the interior felt cold and almost devoid of personal touch, more akin to a luxurious hotel lobby than a home. Initially, the atmosphere between them was a bit awkward, tinged with the unspoken expectations of a liaison brought back from a party, but all that stiffness melted away when Arthur touched her. For Scarlett, experiences with Alex had been about speed, selfish passion, and quick completion, all centered around Alex's gratification. She was used to feeling like an object, a means to an end. With Arthur, everything was different. There was no rush. His touch was deliberate, as if he was studying every inch of Scarlett's skin with profound respect. His gaze was focused, as if at that moment, nothing else in the world mattered more than her. The man who appeared weary and powerful in public, transformed in this private space into a patient and genuine figure. He didn't take, he gave. He didn't demand, he adored. For the first time in a long time, Scarlett didn't feel used. She felt desired, valued. Something within her that had long been dormant. Something, shattered by Alex's betrayal, suddenly jolted awake. She had come here with a cold agenda of revenge, yet her body responded with an honesty she couldn't control. She became wild not out of pretense, but out of an unexpected freedom. That night in her enemy's bed, Scarlett found true pleasure. Scarlett awoke to the silvery light of dawn. She was alone in the vast silk bed. For a moment she felt disoriented, before all the memories of the night flooded back. She sat up, pulling the blanket to cover herself. Her mission of revenge felt complicated now, contaminated by feelings she hadn't planned for. The bedroom door opened and Arthur entered, Already dressed in a crisp white shirt and trousers, he was back to being the CEO. He placed a glass of water on the bedside table for Scarlett.
I need to head to the office soon,
he said, his tone polite but distant. He then walked to his briefcase, pulled out a thick white envelope, and laid it on the dressing table.
This is for you.
Scarlett's heart sank. Money, of course. Men like Arthur settled everything with transactions. This was the defining moment. She got out of bed, the blanket still wrapped around her, and walked over to Arthur. She didn't touch the envelope.
Arthur?
She called softly. Arthur turned, ready to hear a thank you or perhaps a request for more.
Please,
Scarlett continued, her voice sincere.
don't ruin the memory of last night with this.
Arthur looked surprised. He furrowed his brow.
Ty, I beg your pardon?
Honestly,
Scarlett said, looking directly into his now confused eyes.
I should be thanking you. It's been so long since I felt like that, valued.
She paused as if holding back emotions.
You made me forget the pain Alex left behind. You made me believe again that good men still exist in this world.
Silence filled the room. Arthur simply stood motionless, staring at Scarlett as if seeing her for the first time. His usually calm and controlled face now displayed an unreadable expression. He was a master negotiator, a reader of people. But this woman before him was completely beyond his predictions. She didn't take the money. She thanked him instead. The thick envelope lay on the table, feeling like an insult amidst a moment that suddenly felt so personal. Arthur looked at Scarlett, and for the first time, he didn't see her as a fleeting conquest. He saw her as an anomaly, a captivating enigma. The curiosity that had drawn him out of the party last night had now transformed into something much deeper. He was intrigued. And Scarlett, seeing the change in Arthur's eyes, knew that her plan had succeeded beyond her wildest expectations. She no longer just held the bait. She had set the hook deep. 3 days after that unexpected dawn, Scarlett began to doubt herself. She was back in her dreary motel room, and the luxury of Arthur's penthouse felt like a distant dream. Had her strategy been too complicated? Would Arthur, after clearer thought, simply dismiss her as a distraction and forget her? The doubt felt cold and gnawed at her confidence. Just as she began to despair, her phone rang. Arthur Middleton appeared on the screen. Her heart stopped for a beat.
Scarlett.
The husky voice greeted from the other end, sounding slightly hesitant.
I hope I'm not disturbing you. I've been thinking about our conversation. I'd like to continue it. Do you have time for dinner tomorrow?
Scarlett closed her eyes for a moment, a relieved, victorious smile gracing her lips.
Of course, Arthur. I'd love that.
That dinner became the start of a pattern. Arthur no longer treated her like a fleeting conquest. He took her to the most exclusive restaurants, not to show off, but in private rooms where they could talk undisturbed. He didn't just want to sleep with her. He wanted to hear her thoughts. In the following weeks, Scarlett's world drastically changed. She moved from the cheap motel to a luxurious serviced apartment, fully paid for by Arthur, not as payment, Arthur insisted, but so she would be comfortable and safe. Her wardrobe filled with designer clothes, and jewelry began to adorn her vanity table. For Arthur, Scarlett was an oasis. In his world filled with board meetings, numbers, and people who only wanted his money, Scarlett was the only thing that felt real. She listened to his work grievances. She praised his achievements, and she never asked for anything. She provided a comfort and warmth that slowly made Arthur's cold penthouse feel like home. The man who once lived only for work now began to find reasons to come home early. For Scarlett, this was a dangerous game of roles. She was an actress in her solo performance. She studied Arthur, understood his emptiness, and filled that void with the perfect persona. She laughed at his jokes. She sympathized with his pressures. She adored him in a way that made Arthur feel like the greatest man in the world. However, sometimes when she was alone in her new apartment, staring at her reflection in the mirror surrounded by luxury, the line between pretense and reality began to blur. She enjoyed Arthur's attention. She enjoyed the security and luxury that now enveloped her. In those moments, she had to touch the invisible scar on her heart to remind herself.
It's all just a means to an end.
She whispered to her reflection.
The goal is Alex.
One evening, as they were relaxing in the penthouse, enjoying a glass of wine, Arthur's phone rang. Scarlett recognized the special ringtone Arthur had set for his son. Arthur answered it with the brief, efficient tone he usually reserved for business. The conversation sounded tense and one-sided. After hanging up, Arthur let out a long sigh, looking more tired than usual.
Is everything all right?
Scarlett asked softly, placing her hand over Arthur's. Arthur looked at her, his eyes showing restlessness.
It's Alex,
He said. He paused, then continued with a bitter tone.
He's getting married. Next month.
Scarlett's heart began to beat faster, yet her face showed perfect sympathy.
Oh, Arthur, that's big news.
Big news, big expense.
Arthur scoffed.
Of course, he didn't call to ask for my blessing, but to make sure the funds were cleared.
Scarlett gently stroked the back of Arthur's hand.
You're a good father for still supporting him.
Arthur shook his head.
I'm a tired father, Scarlett, but I'll do it.
Scarlett leaned her head on Arthur's shoulder, concealing the cold smile that was beginning to form on her lips. She didn't need to do anything else. The stage for her final act had just been announced, and the director was her enemy himself. Alex's wedding. That would be his day of reckoning. The month leading up to Alex's wedding felt like both 2 years and 2 seconds simultaneously. Scarlett lived in luxury, financed by Arthur, while Arthur himself was busy signing checks for the extravagant wedding of a son he barely spoke to. The irony was so thick it could almost be tasted in the air every time. The wedding planner called for approval on exorbitant catering costs or sky-high imported flower decorations. Scarlett would sit on the comfortable leather sofa in Arthur's study, sipping her tea, listening to the conversations with an expression of perfect support.
Of course, you should choose white lilies, darling.
She suggested one afternoon, as Arthur complained about the flower choices.
They symbolize purity and innocence, so fitting for them.
Arthur chuckled at the subtle sarcasm in her voice, a private joke between the two of them. He grew increasingly dependent on Scarlett, on her dark humor and on her warmth, which became his only escape from his exhausting family drama. He didn't realize that the woman providing him comfort was the main architect of the very tension he felt. For Scarlett, every wedding bill Arthur approved was a small victory. Every time Arthur complained about Alex's spoiled nature, it was music to her ears. She patiently allowed Arthur to build the stage for his own downfall. Brick by brick, dollar by dollar. One day, a thick ivory envelope with gold embossing lay on the coffee table, the official wedding invitation. Arthur didn't even glance at it, seeing it as just another reminder of his expensive obligations. However, while Arthur was in the shower, Scarlett picked it up. Her hands trembled slightly as she broke the seal. Inside, written in beautiful calligraphy, it read, Alexander Middleton and Jessica Chandra request your presence to celebrate their union of love. Reading Alex's name alongside, the other woman's name, briefly caused a familiar pang of pain, a remnant of old wounds. Alex had discarded her for this woman. Now they were getting married. But the pain quickly faded, replaced by a cold wave of immense satisfaction. Now Scarlett was ready for merciless retribution. She would make that wedding the worst day of Alex's life. She would not let the man who had cheated on her be happy with that tramp. She looked at the date listed at the bottom of the invitation. Saturday, October 18th. That date was no longer just a number on a calendar. It was a promise, a purpose, Judgment Day. Scarlett placed the invitation back on the table, exactly where it had been. She walked to the giant glass window, gazing at the sprawling city lights below. Everything seemed so small from up here. She touched her own reflection in the glass, and a cold, calculating smile formed on her lips. The countdown had begun. Saturday, October 18th. The sky beyond the penthouse. Windows stretched flawlessly blue. Perfect weather for a wedding. Inside the bedroom, thick curtains remained drawn, creating an intimate twilight atmosphere that made time seem to stand still. Arthur stirred in bed, feeling the warmth of Scarlett's body beside him. He glanced at the digital clock on the nightstand. 11 in the morning.
I should start getting ready.
He murmured, more to himself than to Scarlett. His voice was hoarse with sleep.
The ceremony's at 2 in the afternoon.
Shh, Scarlett whispered right into his ear, her lips brushing his skin. She turned her body, now fully facing Arthur.
The party won't start without the groom's father, will it? They can wait.
Her hands began to dance across Arthur's chest, their movements slow, deliberate, and incredibly effective. She knew exactly where to touch, where to press, to make Arthur's rational thoughts evaporate like morning dew. Every time Arthur tried to get up, Scarlett would pull him back with a deep kiss or a seductive whisper.
Just 5 more minutes.
She purred, a line she repeated every half hour. 5 minutes turned into an hour, then 2. The atmosphere in the room was filled with a passion that felt strangely ominous. For Arthur, this was the sweetest escape from his annoying obligations. He drowned himself in Scarlett's allure, allowing her to be his sole reality. His guilt about neglecting his son was buried beneath waves of pleasure. For Scarlett, this was her peak performance. Every touch was a calculated move. Every sigh was a note in the symphony of destruction she was composing. She was the snake coiling around its prey so tightly it forgot how to breathe. She checked the digital clock occasionally, its ticking feeling like a bomb's countdown. 1 o'clock. 1:30. Arthur, now completely entranced, no longer mentioned the wedding. His world had narrowed, confined to this luxurious bed and the woman in his arms. She had successfully made Arthur forget time, forget his son, forget everything except her. Exactly at 2:15, amidst a silence filled only by their breathing, a loud digital sound tore through their intimacy. The sound of Arthur's phone on the nightstand was so piercing and alien. Arthur, startled from his reverie, turned sluggishly. He reached out to grab his phone, perhaps to dismiss the call, but Scarlett was quicker. Not to dismiss, but to see the screen. In the dim light, the screen shone brightly, displaying a name Scarlett had been waiting for. Alex. Arthur stared at the name with a bewildered look, as if just waking from a long dream. Scarlett, watching the screen over Arthur's shoulder, felt nothing but a cold tremor of triumph. She raised her face and looked at Arthur. A thin smile, the smile of a predator, who had successfully cornered her prey, formed on her lips. The moment had arrived. Judgment Day. The phone's vibration felt like a frantic heartbeat in the quiet room. Arthur stared at the screen with a bewildered expression, as if trying to connect the name Alex with the real world he had left behind hours ago. His first instinct was to reject the call, ignore it, and sink back into the fog of pleasure Scarlett had created.
Don't answer it.
Arthur whispered, his voice hoarse. However, Scarlett gently shook her head. With a deliberate motion, she reached out, not to decline the call, but to press the green button. She put it on speakerphone before pushing the phone towards Arthur.
Answer it.
She commanded, her voice soft yet undeniable.
He's your son.
Arthur, now too entranced to argue, hesitantly brought the phone to his ear.
Dad, where are you?
Alex's voice exploded from the other end, filled with panic and rage.
Everyone's here. Jessica's crying. What's going on?
Alex, calm down.
Arthur said, his voice weak and out of place. It was then that Scarlett launched her final attack. She moved, deliberately creating a soft rustle from the silk sheets. She brought her lips close to Arthur's neck and let out a low moan, just loud enough for the phone's microphone to catch. On the other end of the line, Alex's rage was instantly replaced by confusion.
Wait, what was that sound? Dad, who are you with?
Seeing the panic starting to creep onto Arthur's face, Scarlett knew this was the moment. She no longer held back. She moved faster, more intensely. Her moans now unmistakable, loud, clear, and filled with the passion she had perfectly rehearsed. Then she whispered her killer line, just loud enough to be clearly heard on the other end.
Oh, Daddy.
She moaned, using the taboo and devastating endearment. She paused for dramatic effect before adding her final dagger.
It's so good, Daddy. You are so much better than Alex.
Total silence on the other end, a silence so thick it felt like an explosion. Scarlett could almost picture Alex's face, pale, eyes wide, disbelieving.
Oh, what?
Alex's voice finally came, now just a trembling whisper, filled with horror and devastation.
No, it can't be.
Arthur, his face now deathly pale, tried to pull the phone away, tried to turn it off, but his grip was weak. He was caught between the horror of the situation and the physical pleasure Scarlett continued to provide, now moving with relentless intensity, ensuring Arthur had no choice but to drown with her.
Who are you with, Dad? Dad, answer me.
Scarlett moaned even more, Scarlett kept talking so that Alex would recognize her voice.
Dad, are you with Scarlett? What are you doing?
His rage finally erupted after realizing what was happening. His father was making love to his ex-girlfriend.
Damn you! Damn you, Dad!
Alex finally exploded in a childish tantrum, before the call ended with a harsh click. The phone fell from Arthur's grasp, landing silently on the blanket. In the luxurious room, Arthur held Scarlett tightly, unwilling to let go as his lips explored Scarlett's body, which moved ever more brutally in his lap. Arthur completely disregarded Alex, his son. In his eyes, Scarlett was more important. For Scarlett, today was her day of triumph, delivering retribution to the ex-boyfriend, who cheated on her by sleeping with his father on her ex-boyfriend's wedding day. The pain Scarlett had once felt, the sincere love that was wasted, the humiliation when she was discarded by Alex, all now paid back. In full. Scarlett was not afraid to be the villain to the man who had hurt and betrayed her. The mission was complete. Victory had been achieved. The silence after the phone call ended was heavy, yet not awkward. Arthur still stared at his phone with a blank gaze, trying to process the reality that had just crashed into him. However, when he turned to Scarlett, he found no remorse or fear. What he saw was a smile. Scarlett's smile slowly blossomed, a pure smile filled with immense triumph and relief. The burden she had carried for so long had been lifted. Her life's mission was complete. Without a word, she leaned forward and kissed Arthur's lips. It wasn't a passionate kiss like before, but a deep kiss, full of gratitude and celebration. A kiss of a victor. Arthur, who had still been dazed, was startled by the action. He felt the genuine happiness radiating from Scarlett, and it was contagious. He returned the kiss, swept along in Scarlett's victorious euphoria, even though he didn't fully comprehend its depth. After a moment, they broke apart. Arthur looked at Scarlett's radiant face. One thing still bothered him.
You look happy?
Arthur said, his voice bewildered.
Aren't you hurt about Alex?
Scarlett chuckled softly, a laugh that sounded free and light.
Hurt?
She repeated.
Arthur, my tears for Alex dried up long ago.
He destroyed me, and I mourned the naive girl who once loved him. But that girl is dead. She looked into Arthur's eyes with a sharp, honest gaze.
I don't want Alex anymore.
Even if he begged on his knees, I would never go back to him. She smiled suggestively, her hand caressing Arthur's chest.
Besides, riding you is far more fun.
That blunt, confident statement made Arthur burst out laughing. The weight on his chest seemed to lift. This woman was extraordinary. She wasn't pretending.
I'm glad to hear that.
Arthur said, now completely relaxed. He pulled Scarlett closer.
And you don't have to worry about me feeling guilty.
Oh, really?
Scarlett asked, playing with his shirt buttons.
Not at all.
Arthur replied, his tone now cold and firm.
That boy has been a problem my entire life. Minor scandals, debts, and constant misbehavior tarnishing the Middleton name. I'm tired of cleaning up his messes.
He looked towards the window, at the city that was his kingdom.
Perhaps this is exactly what needed to happen. Maybe I needed someone like you to make me realize that sometimes bad assets simply need to be let go.
Scarlett smiled. She had given Arthur the perfect justification for his actions. He wasn't a bad father. He was a shrewd businessman taking a difficult but necessary step. That night, they were no longer burdened by secrets or schemes. Both of them, for different reasons, had been freed from Alex. They celebrated not as lovers falling in love, but as two allies who had just won the same war, amidst the ruins of a shattered wedding. They built the foundation for something new, an alliance based on pleasure, comfort, and a shared disdain for a common enemy. And for both of them, that was more than enough. The dawn light filtered through the slightly ajar curtains, painting golden streaks across the silk sheets. For the first time in a long while, Scarlett woke up feeling peaceful. No longer in a cramped motel room reeking of despair, but at the top of the world, where the only sound was the faint hum of city life below. The rich, fresh aroma of coffee greeted her before she even fully opened her eyes. When she did, she saw Arthur standing by the bed. He was already immaculately dressed in an expensive casual shirt, his hair neatly combed. In his hands was a gleaming, polished wooden tray. On it sat 2 steaming cups of coffee, a seemingly crispy croissant, a small bowl of fresh berries, and a single white orchid in a tiny vase, a gesture so simple yet so profoundly out of character for Arthur Middleton.
Good morning.
Arthur greeted, his voice softer than usual. He carefully placed the tray on Scarlett's lap.
I thought you might be hungry.
Thank you, Arthur.
Scarlett replied, a rare, genuine smile gracing her face.
This is very romantic.
They enjoyed breakfast in comfortable silence. The silence of allies, no longer awkward lovers. Outside, life continued, but in this room, they seemed to be in their own bubble of peace. However, that peace was broken. A harsh, constant vibration came from the nightstand. Arthur's phone, left there last night, was now alive and vibrating incessantly like a fire alarm. Its screen kept lighting up, displaying a barrage of notifications from one name, Alex. Arthur sighed, a small gesture indicating annoyance, not sadness. Scarlett glanced at the screen from the corner of her eye. She could read snippets of messages filled with rage and panic. Alex, you're not my father anymore. I hope you die. Alex, Dad, please answer. We need to talk, please. Alex, you chose that harlot over your own son? You'll regret this! Arthur's face hardened. With a calm and very controlled movement, he reached out, grabbed the phone, and pressed the side button until the screen went black and the vibrations ceased. He didn't read the messages one by one. He simply silenced the source of the noise. Then he placed it back face down, a decisive final act. He looked back at Scarlett, and in his eyes a decision had just been solidified.
For years,
Arthur began, his voice soft and contemplative.
I lived like a machine. Meetings, numbers, acquisitions. I built an empire, but I lived in a cold museum. Even my relationship with my own son felt like a transaction.
He reached for Scarlett's hand, his warm fingers clasping her cool ones.
Then you came, and last night, when all that chaos happened, I didn't feel panic or guilt. I just felt relief, as if a burden I hadn't realized I was carrying finally lifted. My old empty life, it's over.
He looked directly into Scarlett's eyes, showing a vulnerability he had never shown anyone else.
Scarlett, I don't want to spend another day without you. Will you marry me?
The question hung in the air. Scarlett felt a surge of overwhelming emotion. She remembered crying on the floor of her old apartment, the stifling coldness of the motel room, and now, the most powerful man she knew was asking her to be the center of his new world. She looked at Arthur, then glanced at the dead phone on the nightstand. There lay the rubble of Alex's life. Here, before her, was a gem, a soft, victorious smile, a victory whose price only she truly knew, formed on her lips.
Yes, Arthur, I will.
Arthur closed his eyes for a moment, immense relief radiating from his face. He pulled Scarlett into his embrace, a tight, protective hug. Scarlett rested her head on Arthur's shoulder, inhaling the scent of coffee and the man who was now hers. Over Arthur's shoulder, she could see the sprawling city view. Her new empire. This was no longer just about revenge. This was about taking back her life and upgrading it to a level she had never imagined. This was a total upgrade,